What if the price of saving your sister was marrying the wrong man? A veil. A secret. A vow spoken under false pretenses. But when Eleanor Smith takes her sister's place at the altar, she steps into a marriage filled with lies, dangerous secrets, and a love she was never meant to feel. This is the tale of the bride who switched places, a gothic romance where passion collides with betrayal, and one choice changes everything. Before we continue, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more stories like this. The rain had fallen all morning, painting the Smith estate in a grey, melancholic light. The house stood tall and proud, though inside it was full of unease. Eleanor Smith stood at the large window of the drawing room, her dark eyes scanning the misty gardens below. She had always loved the smell of rain on roses, but today it gave her no comfort. Behind her, the sound of muffled sobs broke the silence. "Please, Eleanor, you must help me," Grace whispered. She was seated on the chaise, her hands trembling as she held a handkerchief to her tear-stained face. Grace's golden curls were a tangled mess, and her usually bright blue eyes were red from crying. She looked younger than her 20 years, fragile as porcelain, a contrast to Eleanor's tall, confident bearing. Eleanor turned from the window, her jaw tightening. She hated to see her sister in despair. Grace had always been gentle, soft-spoken, and too easily frightened by the harshness of the world. Eleanor, older by 3 years, had long been her protector, the shield between Grace and the cruelty of society. "Grace," Eleanor said softly, coming to kneel beside her sister. "Tell me again what father said." Grace let out a broken sigh. He said I am to marry Lord Nathaniel Blackwood tomorrow. The papers are signed. The banns have been read. Everything is arranged." Eleanor's eyes darkened. She had heard rumors of Lord Nathaniel, wealthy, powerful, and feared. He was a man of striking looks, they said, but also of icy temperament. His estate, Blackwood Manor, was whispered to be cursed, haunted by shadows of past tragedies. His first bride-to-be had died under mysterious circumstances, though nothing was ever proven. Eleanor pressed her lips together. "And you told father you do not wish to marry him?" Grace's tears flowed again. "Of course I told him. But he would not listen. He said this is our only chance to restore the family name. He said Lord Blackwood's fortune will save us. He said it was decided." Her voice broke into sobs. Eleanor clenched her fists. She knew their father's desperation too well. Once a man of standing, Mr. Smith had lost nearly everything in business dealings gone wrong. His pride would not allow him to live in shame, and so he had turned to marrying off his daughters as if they were bargaining chips. Eleanor rose, pacing the room. "You are not made for this, Grace. You would wither in Blackwood Manor. That man, he is not the husband you need." Grace looked up at her with pleading eyes. "Then what can I do? If I refuse, father will disown me. If I marry him, I will be trapped. Eleanor, you've always protected me. I am begging you now, save me from this fate." Her voice cracked on the last word, and Eleanor stopped pacing. She stared at her sister, heart twisting with love and anguish. She could not bear to see Grace broken. Her mind raced. There had to be a way. And then, like lightning in the storm, the thought struck her. Reckless. Impossible. Dangerous. And yet. Eleanor slowly sat beside Grace, taking her cold hand in her own. "Listen to me carefully," she said in a low voice. "What if you did not marry him tomorrow?" Grace frowned, confused. "But I must. Father." No, Eleanor's voice was firm. "What if someone else took your place?" Grace blinked. Then her eyes widened with dawning horror. "Eleanor, no. You cannot mean." "I do mean it." Eleanor's dark gaze was unwavering. "I will go to the altar in your stead. You will remain here. Say you are unwell, hidden away. No one will question the veil. By the time the truth is discovered, if it ever is, you will be safe." Grace shook her head violently, fear in her expression. "But, Eleanor," He will know. He will see it is you and not me. Not if I play the part well enough, Eleanor replied firmly. And if he does, then let him. Better I suffer his wrath than you. I am not afraid of him. Grace's lips trembled. But why would you sacrifice yourself for me? Eleanor squeezed her sister's hand, her voice softening. Because you are my sister. Because you are too tender for such a life. Because I love you. That is reason enough. Grace sobbed again and fell into Eleanor's arms. Oh, Eleanor, you would do this for me? Truly? Yes. Eleanor held her tightly, staring into the grey garden beyond the window. Her heart was heavy with dread, yet her resolve was solid. I will do it. For you. The next day dawned with heavy clouds. The church stood solemn and quiet, its bells tolling in the distance. Eleanor's veil covered her face completely, her white gown heavy upon her shoulders. Each step down the aisle echoed in her mind like the closing of a door. Her father walked beside her, proud and oblivious, while Eleanor's heart thundered. She could not see clearly through the veil, but she felt the weight of every eye upon her. She could feel his presence waiting at the altar, Lord Nathaniel Blackwood. The whispers began the moment she reached the front. There he is, the groom. So tall, so striking. Cold as ever. Eleanor's hand trembled as Nathaniel took it. His touch was warm, steady, and unyielding. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to pierce right through her veil. He studied her, and for a moment Eleanor's breath caught. Did he already know? The vows were spoken, the rings exchanged. Each word Eleanor uttered was a lie, yet her voice did not falter. She was marrying a man who was not meant to be hers, binding herself in deception. When the priest declared them husband and wife, Nathaniel lifted his gaze to her veiled face. His lips curved into the faintest of smiles, not joy, not warmth, but something far more dangerous. The kiss was brief, barely a touch, but in that instant Eleanor's world shifted. The deed was done. She was now Lady Blackwood. The carriage ride to Blackwood Manor was silent, save for the rhythmic clatter of hooves against the cobblestone road. Eleanor sat rigid, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Nathaniel sat opposite her, his dark eyes never leaving her. The air was thick with unspoken words. At last, he leaned forward, his voice low, deep, and unsettlingly calm. You are not who they say you are you? Eleanor's breath caught. The words struck her like a dagger. She forced herself to look at him, feigning confusion. I don't understand, my lord. Nathaniel's lips curved in the faintest smirk. Do not play the innocent, my lady. You wear your disguise well. But I see beneath the veil. Eleanor swallowed hard, summoning courage. I am Grace Smith, your lawful wife. He studied her in silence, his gaze sharp and unreadable. At last, he leaned back, as though amused. If you insist. Eleanor's heart pounded, but she kept her composure. She would not let him see her fear. When they arrived at Blackwood Manor, Eleanor's breath caught again. The estate loomed against the stormy sky, its towering spires and shadowed windows casting an ominous presence. The air smelled of damp earth and old stone. It was magnificent, but it was also haunting. As she stepped inside, servants lined the grand hall, bowing respectfully. Yet their eyes followed her with curiosity, even suspicion. Eleanor felt the weight of their stares. Did they, too, sense the truth? Nathaniel dismissed the servants with a gesture. His voice was smooth but commanding. Leave us. When they were alone, he turned to Eleanor. You must be tired from the day. I will show you to your chambers. Eleanor hesitated. Our chambers? Nathaniel's dark eyes flickered with something unreadable. Amusement, perhaps, or challenge. Of course. We are husband and wife. Her stomach twisted. She forced a polite smile. Yes, of course. He led her through winding corridors until they reached a grand bedchamber lit by flickering candles. The walls were adorned with heavy tapestries, the bed vast and draped in velvet. Eleanor's heart raced as she stepped inside. Nathaniel closed the door behind them, the sound echoing ominously. He stood still for a moment, watching her. Then he spoke softly, almost tenderly, yet with an edge of steel. "I will not force myself upon you tonight. But make no mistake, my lady, you are mine now. Whatever truth you hide, whatever game you play, it changes nothing. You are my wife." Eleanor turned to him, her voice steady though her heart was thundering. "And you are my husband. That is all that matters." Nathaniel's lips curved slightly, as if he knew she was lying. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. He reached out, lifting her chin with a finger so she could not look away. "Do you know what I see when I look at you?" he asked quietly. Eleanor's breath trembled. "What do you see?" "A woman who thinks she is clever. A woman who hides secrets. But secrets have a way of unraveling." Eleanor Smith. Her heart stopped. He had spoken her true name. Eleanor froze, her eyes wide. I. Nathaniel smiled faintly, releasing her chin. He turned away, walking toward the window where the storm raged outside. "Sleep well, my lady," he said softly. "Tomorrow, the game begins." And with that, he left her in the candlelit chamber, her heart hammering in terror. The storm had passed in the night, leaving the morning air heavy with mist that clung to the windows of Blackwood Manor. Eleanor stood before the long mirror in her chamber, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the laces of her gown. Her reflection showed a composed bride, hair neatly pinned, face calm, but her heart was anything but still. She could still hear Nathaniel's voice from last night echoing in her mind. Secrets have a way of unraveling. Eleanor Smith. He knew. He had spoken her true name. And yet, he had not exposed her, had not dragged her before the household or sent her back to her father in disgrace. Why? A knock at the door startled her. She turned quickly, smoothing her skirts. "Enter," she called, steadying her voice. A maid slipped inside, a young woman with pale skin and wide, watchful eyes. She curtsied. "Good morning, my lady. I've come to bring your breakfast." Eleanor forced a polite smile. "Thank you. What is your name?" "Margaret, my lady," the maid said, setting down a tray laden with bread, fruit, and steaming tea. She hesitated before speaking again. "If I may, my lady, you should be cautious." Eleanor frowned. "Cautious?" Margaret's eyes flicked nervously toward the door, as though afraid someone might overhear. She lowered her voice. "This house holds many secrets. Not all of them kind. Watch the master closely." Before Eleanor could respond, the maid curtsied again and left quickly, leaving Eleanor chilled by the warning. The morning passed in uneasy silence until Nathaniel himself appeared. He entered her chamber without knocking, his presence filling the room like a shadow. "My lady," he said smoothly, "I trust you slept well." Eleanor lifted her chin, forcing calm. "I did, thank you." He studied her closely, his eyes dark and unreadable. "You play the role well. Almost convincingly." Her heart leapt. "I am Grace Smith," she said firmly, lying through clenched teeth. Nathaniel stepped closer, his lips curving in faint amusement. "Grace. Eleanor. Perhaps you do not yet understand. I do not care which name you claim. What matters is that you are mine." His words struck her with a mix of fear and defiance. "And if I were not willing?" she asked quietly. Nathaniel's gaze sharpened, his voice lowering to a dangerous softness. "Then you would learn, my lady, that unwillingness has consequences." For a moment the silence between them was suffocating. Eleanor held his stare, refusing to show weakness, though her heart thundered in her chest. At last, Nathaniel smiled faintly, as though amused by her courage. "Come," he said, offering his arm. "I will show you your new home." Blackwood Manor was vast and labyrinthine, its corridors dim despite the daylight. Tapestries hung heavy on the walls, portraits of stern ancestors staring down with cold eyes. The air smelled faintly of smoke and age. As they walked, Nathaniel pointed out the library, the music room, the drawing rooms, all with an elegance that seemed untouched by warmth. Servants bowed as they passed, their faces unreadable. Finally, they came to a long hallway lined with locked doors. Eleanor's curiosity stirred. "And these?" she asked. Nathaniel's expression did not change. "Rooms that are no longer in use." Something in his tone made her uneasy. She pressed, "Why are they locked?" He glanced at her, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Some doors are best left closed." The words lingered in her mind, heavy with warning. That evening, Eleanor sat alone in the drawing room, the fire crackling softly. She thought of Grace, safe at the Smith estate, unaware of the dangerous game her sister now played. Eleanor's chest tightened with guilt. The door creaked open. A low voice spoke from the shadows. "My lady, forgive me." It was Margaret, the maid. She slipped inside, closing the door quickly behind her. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. "What is it?" Eleanor asked, rising to her feet. Margaret wrung her hands. "I should not speak of it, but, you must know. The master did not want this marriage." Eleanor froze. "What do you mean?" Margaret's voice dropped to a whisper. "He fought against it. He told his uncle he would not take a bride chosen for him. Yet the wedding was forced upon him." Eleanor's heart pounded. Forced? Then why had he married her? And why had he accepted the switch so easily? Margaret's eyes darted toward the door. "Be careful, my lady. This house is dangerous. And trust no one." Before Eleanor could question further, footsteps echoed in the hall. Margaret paled, curtsied quickly, and fled through the opposite door. The footsteps grew louder, Nathaniel's steps. Eleanor turned toward the fire just as he entered, his sharp eyes scanning the room. "Were you speaking with someone?" he asked calmly. Eleanor forced a steady tone. "No. I was alone." Nathaniel's gaze lingered on her, searching, probing, as though he could read every lie she spoke. Finally, he inclined his head. "Very well." But Eleanor knew he did not believe her. That night, unable to sleep, Eleanor wandered the halls. Her candle flickered against the dark stone, casting long shadows. She found herself before the row of locked doors once more. Her hand hovered over one iron handle. Something compelled her, curiosity, dread, or perhaps the whisper of secrets calling from behind the wood. She pushed. The door creaked open. Inside was a room thick with dust, untouched for years. Cobwebs clung to the corners, and a chill hung in the air. Eleanor lifted her candle higher, and froze. On the table before her lay a faded bridal veil, stained and torn. Beside it, a silver locket, its chain broken. Her heart stopped. This must have belonged to Nathaniel's first bride, the one who had died mysteriously before their wedding. Eleanor's hand trembled as she reached for the locket. The metal was cold beneath her fingers. She opened it. Inside was a miniature portrait of a young woman with kind eyes and soft features. The flame of her candle wavered as footsteps echoed behind her. "Curiosity," Nathaniel's voice drawled from the shadows, "is a dangerous thing." Eleanor spun around, the locket clutched tightly in her hand. Nathaniel stood in the doorway, his face unreadable, his eyes glinting in the candlelight. Eleanor's breath came fast. She felt caught, like a child sneaking where she ought not. Nathaniel stepped into the room, his tall frame filling the doorway. The flickering light cast sharp lines across his face, making him appear both beautiful and menacing. "Do you make it a habit, my lady," he said softly, "to wander in the dead of night?" Eleanor's fingers tightened around the locket. I could not sleep." Nathaniel's gaze drifted to the table, to the veil, to the object clutched in her hand. His jaw tightened. "That locket is not yours." She hesitated, then held it out to him, her voice shaking slightly. "Whose was it?" For a long moment, he said nothing. At last, he took the locket, closing it with a snap. It belonged to a woman who no longer walks this earth. Eleanor swallowed. Your first bride. His eyes flickered with something unreadable, anger, pain, or perhaps both. That is none of your concern. But she died, Eleanor pressed, her voice trembling yet firm. They say she died before the wedding. How? Nathaniel stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. His voice was low, dangerous. Do not listen to the whispers of servants, Eleanor. They thrive on tales and shadows. She died of a fever. That is all you need know. Eleanor's heart pounded. She wanted to believe him, but his eyes betrayed something hidden. Why keep her things locked away? She asked softly. Nathaniel's expression hardened. Because the past is a prison. One I will not enter again. For a long moment, silence filled the room. The fire in his eyes burned, daring her to question him further. But Eleanor held her tongue. She had already seen too much. At last, Nathaniel turned away, tucking the locket into his pocket. Come, he said. You should not wander alone. He escorted her back through the dark halls, his hand resting lightly at the small of her back. It was a touch both protective and possessive. Eleanor's thoughts whirled with questions, fear, and something else she dared not name. The days that followed were heavy with unease. Eleanor tried to settle into life at Blackwood Manor, but shadows lingered everywhere. Servants whispered when they thought she could not hear. Doors creaked at night when no one was there. One afternoon, she ventured into the library, a vast room of towering shelves, filled with dust and silence. She traced her fingers over the spines of books, seeking distraction. But she was not alone. Nathaniel entered quietly, his gaze fixed on her. You read, he said, as though it surprised him. Eleanor lifted her chin. Is that so unusual? A faint smile touched his lips. For many women, perhaps. But not, I think, for you. Their eyes met, a silent challenge passing between them. Eleanor felt her heart quicken. He unsettled her, yet drew her in at the same time. Tell me, my lady, Nathaniel said, stepping closer, do you always wear masks? Or will I one day see the truth beneath them? Eleanor's breath caught. She answered quietly, and will you, my lord, ever show me the truth you keep hidden? For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, vulnerability, pain, quickly concealed. He reached out, brushing his fingers lightly against her hand. The touch sent a shiver down her spine. But before she could speak, a sound echoed from the hall, voices, hurried footsteps. A servant burst in, pale and trembling. My lord, my lady, come quickly. There has been an accident. Eleanor's heart lurched. Nathaniel's expression darkened. What accident? The servant stammered. One of the maids, Margaret, she was found in the courtyard. She fell from the upper balcony. Eleanor gasped. Margaret! Her thoughts whirled back to the girl's warnings. Trust no one. The house is dangerous. Nathaniel's jaw was tight as he turned to Eleanor. His voice was grim. It seems this house is not done with its secrets. The day after Margaret's fall was shrouded in uneasy silence. The manor seemed heavier, its walls pressing in, as though mourning the servant girl who had once moved lightly through its corridors. The official story, whispered by servants and confirmed by Nathaniel's stern declaration, was that Margaret had lost her footing on the slick balcony stones. But Eleanor did not believe it. The image haunted her, Margaret's frightened eyes in the drawing room, her trembling voice whispering, "Trust no one." And now she was dead. Eleanor's heart churned with dread. Had Margaret been silenced because she knew too much? Eleanor sat in the library, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She tried to read, but the words blurred before her eyes. She could not shake the memory of the girl's warnings, or the fact that Nathaniel himself had seemed more angry than surprised by the news. The heavy door creaked open, and Eleanor looked up to see Nathaniel entering, his expression unreadable. You have been quiet, he remarked, his deep voice filling the silence. Eleanor lowered her gaze to the book in her lap. There is little to say, my lord. A young woman is dead. Should we not all be quiet? Nathaniel's dark eyes studied her. He came closer, stopping just in front of her chair. You think I am cold? Her head lifted, startled by his bluntness. Do you deny it? He leaned slightly forward, one hand resting on the back of her chair. His presence was overwhelming, his nearness unsettling. I do not grieve like others, he said quietly. I have learned not to. Grief is a weakness that devours. I will not let it consume me. Eleanor's throat tightened. She wanted to push him away, to despise him, and yet she saw something flicker in his eyes, something raw, almost wounded. Against her will, her heart softened. You speak of grief as though it is a beast, she said softly. But grief is not weakness. It is proof that we loved. For a moment, the silence was thick with unspoken things. Nathaniel's gaze softened slightly. Then, with a sigh, he straightened. You surprise me, Eleanor, he said. Her chest tightened at the sound of her true name. He no longer pretended not to know. You should hate me, he continued. You should fear me. Yet here you stand, defiant still. Eleanor's lips parted. She wanted to deny it, to say she did hate him, but the truth twisted inside her. For though she feared him, though she distrusted him, she could not deny the strange pull she felt, the way his presence stirred something deep and dangerous in her. I do not hate you, she whispered, almost against her will. His eyes darkened, his jaw tightening. Slowly, deliberately, he reached out and brushed his fingers against her cheek. The touch was feather-light, yet it sent a jolt through her entire body. He murmured. Then why do you tremble? He murmured. Eleanor's breath caught. She forced herself to meet his gaze. Because I do not know what you will do next. Nathaniel's lips curved faintly, dangerously. Neither do I. And then, before she could react, his hand slid behind her neck, drawing her closer. His mouth met hers in a kiss that was at once commanding and desperate. Eleanor gasped against him, her heart racing. For a moment, she resisted, but then, like a flame catching in dry grass, something in her broke, and she kissed him back. It was madness. It was wrong. And yet it felt inevitable. When at last he pulled away, his breath was ragged. He studied her face, his own expression unreadable, though his eyes burned with intensity. You should not have done that, she whispered, her voice trembling. Perhaps, he said. And yet, I would do it again. He turned abruptly, leaving her breathless in the library. Eleanor pressed her hand to her lips, her body trembling with confusion. She hated herself for it, but the truth was undeniable. She was falling under his spell. Days passed, heavy with tension. Eleanor avoided Nathaniel when she could, though every glance, every brush of his hand, lingered in her mind like a dangerous secret. She was bound by lies, yet her heart betrayed her. And then, a letter arrived. It came in the late afternoon, delivered by a servant. The envelope was sealed hastily, the ink smudged. Eleanor's heart lurched when she saw the familiar handwriting. Grace. She excused herself quickly and hurried to her chamber, tearing the letter open with trembling hands. Dearest Eleanor, I cannot bear this secrecy any longer. I fear every day that someone will discover the truth. Father believes I am ill, and I have hidden well enough, but I am terrified. I beg you, do not let Nathaniel know what we have done. He would never forgive us. He is a dangerous man, Eleanor. I tremble at the thought of his anger. But there is more you must know. I did not tell you before, for fear of breaking your resolve, but I could not have married him. Not only because I was afraid, but because my heart belongs to another. His name is William, and I love him with all my soul. If I had stood at that altar, my heart would have betrayed me. I could never have survived as Lady Blackwood. Forgive me, sister, for placing this burden upon you. You are stronger than I. I pray every night that you remain safe in that dreadful house. Do not let him uncover the truth. If he does, it will mean ruin for us both. With all my love, Grace. Eleanor sank onto the bed, the letter trembling in her hands. Grace loved another. That was why she had begged Eleanor to save her. The guilt pressed heavier than ever. Eleanor had stepped into the role not only to protect Grace from fear, but to shield her sister's forbidden love. Eleanor closed her eyes, her chest aching. She had sacrificed her own freedom, her own heart, for Grace's happiness. And yet, she was no longer certain where her heart truly belonged. That evening, Eleanor joined Nathaniel in the dining hall. The table stretched long and grand, but only 2 seats were occupied. The firelight flickered, casting shadows across Nathaniel's sharp features. "You are quiet tonight," he remarked, his eyes fixed on her. Eleanor forced composure. "I have much on my mind." His gaze lingered. "Secrets." Her breath caught. He always seemed to pierce right through her. "We all have secrets," she replied carefully. Nathaniel's lips curved faintly. "Indeed. But some secrets are more dangerous than others." Her fork trembled in her hand. She quickly set it down, her voice steady but strained. "Do you mean mine, or yours?" For a moment, their eyes locked across the table, the air thick with unspoken truths. Then Nathaniel leaned back, sipping his wine with deliberate calm. "Perhaps both," he said softly. The following day, a visitor arrived at Blackwood Manor, a distant cousin of Nathaniel's, a gentleman named Charles Harrow. He was tall, lean, with an easy smile and bright eyes. Unlike Nathaniel's quiet intensity, Charles was open, talkative, and charming. When Eleanor entered the drawing room to meet him, he rose at once, bowing with flourish. "Lady Blackwood," he said warmly, "a pleasure at last. I have heard much of your beauty." Eleanor blushed slightly, offering a polite smile. "You are kind, Mr. Harrow." Nathaniel stood nearby, his expression unreadable, though his eyes flickered with something dark as he watched the exchange. Charles, oblivious to the tension, continued cheerfully. "Tell me, my lady, do you often read? Nathaniel tells me you frequent the library." "I do," Eleanor said softly. "Then you and I will have much to discuss," Charles said with a grin. Nathaniel's voice cut through the air, low and sharp. "That will do, Charles." Charles blinked, then chuckled. "Forgive me, cousin. I meant no offense." But Eleanor saw the way Nathaniel's jaw tightened, the way his eyes burned. A strange possessiveness hung in the air, and Eleanor's heart quickened. That evening, as Eleanor prepared for bed, she found herself staring at Grace's letter once more. Her sister's words echoed in her mind, "Do not let him uncover the truth." A sudden knock at the door startled her. She hid the letter quickly beneath the pillow. "Enter," she called, steadying her voice. Nathaniel stepped inside, his eyes dark, his presence filling the room. He closed the door softly behind him. "You seemed unsettled today," he said, his voice low. Eleanor turned toward the mirror, brushing her hair to hide her face. "It was nothing." Nathaniel came closer, his reflection appearing behind hers in the mirror. "Was it Charles? Did he unsettle you?" Eleanor met his gaze in the glass. "No. He was kind." Nathaniel's jaw tightened. He stepped closer, his hands bracing against the vanity on either side of her. His voice was a whisper against her ear. "Do not let him near you." Eleanor's breath caught. "Why? Do you not trust him? Or do you not trust me?" Nathaniel's eyes burned in the reflection. "I do not trust anyone. Not in this house." For a long moment, they stood frozen, the tension unbearable. Then, slowly, Nathaniel reached out, his hand brushing lightly against hers. "You are mine, Eleanor," he said softly, fiercely. "No matter what secrets you keep." Her heart raced. She should have pulled away. She should have denied him. But instead, she turned toward him, her lips trembling. "I am not who you think I am," she whispered, the words slipping out before she could stop them. Nathaniel's eyes narrowed. His voice dropped. Then tell me, who are you? Eleanor's lips parted, her heart thundering. But before she could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed in the hall. A servant knocked urgently at the door. My lord, my lady, forgive the intrusion, but you must come at once. There has been a development. Nathaniel's eyes lingered on Eleanor's, burning with suspicion and curiosity. Then he turned sharply toward the door. What is it? He demanded. The servant stammered. It is your guest. A young woman has arrived at the manor. She claims to be Grace Smith. Eleanor's blood turned to ice. The great hall of Blackwood Manor felt colder than usual that night. The fire burned in the hearth, but the warmth did not reach Eleanor's trembling hands as she clutched the edge of her chair. The words of the servant still echoed in her ears. She claims to be Grace Smith. Grace, her sister, was here. Eleanor's mind raced. Had Grace lost her senses? Had she come to expose everything, to ruin them both? Or had she come in desperation, unable to remain hidden? The doors opened, and Nathaniel entered with the swiftness of a storm. His dark eyes fixed on Eleanor at once. Come with me, he ordered, his tone sharp as steel. Eleanor rose unsteadily. What has happened? Where is she? Nathaniel's gaze narrowed. You know very well who I speak of. He did not wait for her reply. With a firm hand, he took her arm and led her down the corridor. His grip was not cruel, but it was unyielding, as though he feared she might vanish if he let her go. They came to a smaller sitting room, where the fire was low and shadows stretched long across the floor. And there, sitting nervously on the edge of a chair, was Grace. Eleanor's heart stopped. Grace looked pale and fragile, her golden hair in disarray from travel. Her blue eyes widened when she saw Eleanor. Sister, Grace whispered, rising to her feet. Eleanor froze, her throat tightening. For a heartbeat, she longed to run to Grace, to hold her, to weep into her shoulder. But Nathaniel's presence loomed beside her, and every word, every gesture, had to be measured. You are unwell, Eleanor said firmly, forcing a tone of cool reproach. You should not have left home. Grace faltered, her eyes filling with tears. I had to see you. I had to warn you. Enough. Nathaniel's voice cut through the room, smooth and dangerous. He stepped forward, his gaze sweeping between the two sisters. So, the game is over. Eleanor's stomach lurched. Nathaniel's eyes burned into her. Did you think me a fool? Did you truly believe I would not see the difference between you? Eleanor opened her mouth, but no sound came. Grace trembled, tears slipping down her cheeks. Nathaniel turned his gaze on Grace. You are the younger. You are the one promised to me. He looked back to Eleanor, his voice low. And yet it is you I wed. Tell me why. The silence pressed like a weight upon them all. Eleanor's mind raced. She could not betray Grace, not here, not in front of him. She drew herself tall, summoning every ounce of composure. It was my decision, Eleanor said, her voice steady. Grace was unwell. She could not endure the marriage. I took her place to protect her. Nathaniel studied her intently, his jaw tight. To protect her, or to deceive me? Eleanor's lips parted, but before she could speak, Grace cried out, her voice desperate. Please, my lord, do not punish her. It was my fault. I begged her to save me. I could not, she broke off, sobbing. Nathaniel's eyes flickered, unreadable. He stepped closer to Eleanor, his gaze unwavering. And you obeyed her plea. You sacrificed yourself. Eleanor met his eyes, her heart pounding. Yes. For a long moment, silence hung heavy in the air. Then Nathaniel gave a soft, humorless laugh. How noble. How foolish. Eleanor stiffened. Do what you will with me, but leave Grace out of this. She does not belong in your world. Nathaniel's smirk faded. His gaze darkened, his voice dropping to a dangerous softness. You think I will cast you aside? You think I wanted grace? Both sisters froze. Nathaniel stepped closer, his eyes fixed on Eleanor alone. I knew the moment I saw you. I knew the veil hid a woman who was not meant for me, but a woman I wanted nonetheless. Do you not see, Eleanor? I let the charade play out because you are the one I desired. Eleanor's breath caught. Her chest tightened with shock, with fear, and something else she dared not name. Grace gasped, her voice breaking. You knew. Nathaniel's lips curved faintly. Of course. Did you think me blind? Eleanor's mind reeled. He had known all along. Every lie she had told, every moment of fear, it had been part of his silent game. Why not expose me? Eleanor whispered. Nathaniel's gaze bore into hers. Because I prefer the truth to be revealed in its own time. And because I wanted to see how far you would go for your sister. He stepped even closer, his voice low, almost intimate. Now I have my answer. Eleanor's heart hammered in her chest. She felt trapped, caught in his web, yet unable to look away. Grace sobbed softly in the corner. Eleanor, I should not have come. Forgive me. Nathaniel's attention flicked to Grace, his tone sharp again. You will return to your father's house tomorrow. Your place is not here. Grace trembled. But... No, Nathaniel's voice brooked no argument. Your sister has chosen her path. She is my wife now. Eleanor's chest ached as she turned to Grace. Their eyes met, 1,000 words passing between them without speech. Love, guilt, regret. Grace's tears fell freely. She whispered, I am sorry, Eleanor, before fleeing from the room. The doors closed behind her, leaving Eleanor and Nathaniel alone. The silence was deafening. At last, Nathaniel spoke, his tone quieter, but no less firm. Now, Eleanor, no more lies. You are mine, and I will not let you run. Eleanor's breath trembled, her heart caught between fury and something far more dangerous, desire. The trap had closed. The next morning dawned bleak and grey. A cold mist clung to the manor grounds, seeping into its halls like a living thing. Eleanor stood at the window of her chamber, watching the carriage that would take Grace away. Her sister's pale face peered back at her one last time, eyes glistening with tears, before the horses carried her into the fog. Eleanor pressed her hand to the glass, her throat tight. Grace was safe now, or so she prayed. But Eleanor herself was bound more tightly than ever. Behind her, a voice spoke. You made the right choice. Eleanor turned sharply. Nathaniel stood in the doorway, his dark hair slightly tousled, his eyes fixed on her. Did I? Eleanor said bitterly. I deceived you. I deceived everyone. And yet you act as though it was what you wanted all along. Nathaniel stepped inside, closing the door behind him. Because it was. Grace was never meant for me. You were. Eleanor's heart twisted. Do not speak as if this were fate. It was a lie, a sin, a theft. Nathaniel's lips curved faintly. Perhaps. But tell me, Eleanor, do you regret it? Her breath caught. She should have said yes. She should have sworn she regretted every moment. But the truth tangled on her tongue. She turned away, staring out at the mist. I regret nothing that saves Grace. Nathaniel moved closer, his voice low. And what of what you have gained? She turned sharply, meeting his burning gaze. And what have I gained, my lord? A prison. A husband I cannot trust. A house where maids fall to their deaths and whispers fill the halls. His expression darkened. You fear me still. I would be a fool not to, Eleanor said softly. For a moment, his eyes softened. He reached out, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. Then let me show you you need not. Her heart raced, her breath trembling. She hated that his touch soothed her even as it unsettled her. But before she could speak, a loud crash echoed from below. Nathaniel stiffened, his expression hardening. "Stay here," he commanded, before striding quickly from the room. Eleanor waited only a moment before following. She descended the stairs, the sound of raised voices drawing her to the servants' quarters. There she found chaos. 2 footmen were restraining another servant, a thin man with shifty eyes. He struggled wildly, shouting, "I did nothing. Let me go." Nathaniel's voice was low, dangerous. "You were seen outside my study. With a letter." The man spat, his eyes wild. "I know nothing of it." But Nathaniel strode forward, seizing the man by the collar. His voice dropped to a chilling whisper. "Do not lie to me. Who are you writing to? Who sent you?" Eleanor's heart pounded. The servant's eyes darted toward her, wide with fear. For a moment, she thought he might speak the truth. But then, suddenly, his body went rigid. His mouth opened, but no sound emerged. He collapsed to the ground, trembling violently. Within seconds, he was still. Gasps filled the air. "He's dead," one servant cried. Eleanor staggered back, her hand to her mouth. She had seen no blade, no poison, nothing but the sudden, horrifying end of a life. Nathaniel's face was grim, his jaw tight. He turned to the gathered servants, his voice sharp. "Search his quarters. Find everything. Now." As the servants scattered, Eleanor's breath trembled. She whispered, "How did he die?" Nathaniel's gaze darkened. "Poison." "But who?" "Someone in this house does not want him speaking," Nathaniel said coldly. "Someone who watches us. Someone who fears discovery." Eleanor's blood ran cold. An enemy within the walls. Nathaniel turned to her, his voice low but firm. "Do not trust anyone, Eleanor. Not even those who smile at you. Not even those who serve you." She shivered. "Then who can I trust?" His eyes locked with hers. "Only me." The words were both a warning and a vow. And Eleanor, though her heart rebelled, felt the truth in them. The enemy was close, closer than she dared imagine. The storm had clawed at Blackwood Manor all evening, shaking the walls with thunder and tearing branches from the trees. Inside, Eleanor stood rigid in the drawing room, her hands clenched in her lap, her chest aching with dread. Her younger sister was back. Grace stood dripping in the doorway, rain plastering her golden hair to her cheeks, her eyes shining with fear. She looked fragile, like a ghost risen from the storm. "Eleanor," Grace whispered, her voice quivering, "you must leave this place. Leave him. Before it's too late." Eleanor rose to her feet, her pulse thundering. "Grace, why have you returned? I sent you away to keep you safe." Grace stepped closer, trembling. "Safe? Do you think there is safety in hiding while you live here, bound to him? You don't understand. He is dangerous. His family ruined father. Don't you remember? It was the Blackwoods who destroyed us. This marriage is nothing but revenge." Her words struck Eleanor like lightning. Her mind reeled back to their father's decline, to the day he lost his fortune, his pride, his will to live. She had never known who to blame. Now Grace was naming Nathaniel's family as the ones who had stripped them bare. Eleanor turned slowly toward Nathaniel. His face was shadowed, his jaw tight, but he did not flinch from her gaze. "Is it true?" Her voice trembled with fury and fear. "Did your family ruin mine?" Nathaniel's eyes burned into hers. "My uncle, Edmund Blackwood, orchestrated it. Not I." Grace gave a bitter, broken laugh. "Always the uncle, always some excuse. Yet here you stand, lord of the estate, drinking wine bought with our ruin." "Enough," Nathaniel snapped. His voice was sharp as steel, but his eyes softened when they returned to Eleanor. "You know nothing of what was done behind these walls, Grace. Edmund sought to break me as much as your father." Eleanor, his voice lowered, raw, urgent. You must believe me. I never wanted Grace. I wanted you. Only you. Eleanor's breath caught. His words seared through her, fierce and unflinching. But Grace clutched her hand, eyes full of pleading. You see. Grace whispered. He twists words to bind you to him. You cannot trust him. You cannot love him. Her tears pierced Eleanor's heart. Nathaniel stepped forward, his gaze sharp and commanding. She is my wife. Her loyalty is mine. Grace gasped as though struck. Her eyes glistened with betrayal. Then choose, Eleanor, she whispered, her voice breaking. Choose your blood, or your husband. Eleanor's heart pounded, torn clean in two. She looked at Grace, her timid, gentle sister who she had always sworn to protect. Then at Nathaniel, dangerous, fierce, yet the man who set her soul alight. Her voice faltered. But the choice was snatched from her lips when the door burst open and a maid stumbled in, pale with terror. My lord, she cried. There's been an attack, on the grounds. A guard is dead. The room erupted into chaos. The storm howled, the wind shrieked through the cracks of the manor, and Eleanor's heart sank with the chilling truth. The enemy had come at last. The manor descended into bedlam. Guards thundered down the halls, swords flashing. Servants ran with lanterns. The storm outside howled like a beast, its lightning illuminating every fear. Eleanor clutched Grace's hand as Nathaniel led them through the corridors, his voice fierce. Stay close. Do not leave my sight. They reached the grand hall. The body of a guard lay crumpled at the open doors, his throat slashed. Rain poured onto the marble floor, washing his blood into crimson streaks. Outside, shadows moved in the mist. Nathaniel's face hardened. Edmund, he spat. This is his hand. And then, he appeared. Edmund Blackwood, tall and gaunt, stepping from the shadows with eyes gleaming cruelly. His voice slid through the hall like venom. Well, well. The impostor bride. The trembling sister. And my wayward nephew. Eleanor froze as his gaze slid over her like a knife. You, Edmund hissed. You are his weakness. He burns for you though you wear another's name. And through you, he will fall. Before she could reply, Nathaniel strode forward, sword drawn. Uncle, he growled. Nephew, Edmund sneered. Come to die. Their blades clashed, steel screaming against steel. Sparks flew, muscles strained, the storm outside roaring like a witness to their fury. You destroyed her family. Nathaniel roared, driving Edmund back. You ruined them to wound me. Edmund's laugh was cold. I did what had to be done. And now I'll end it. The clash of steel rang through the hall. Eleanor pulled Grace behind her, her chest burning with terror. She wanted to scream, to run, but her feet refused to move. And then, Edmund broke free. His blade shot past Nathaniel, lunging straight for Eleanor. No! Nathaniel's cry tore the air. Time slowed. Eleanor saw the flash of steel, felt her breath freeze. Then Nathaniel was there, his body shielding hers. The blade plunged deep into his side. The hall echoed with Grace's scream. Nathaniel staggered, blood pouring down his shirt. Eleanor caught him as he fell, tears blinding her. Nathaniel! No, please, stay with me. His hand touched her cheek, his eyes burning even through the haze of pain. Eleanor, his voice was ragged, breaking. I chose you. From the beginning. I would choose you again. Her heart shattered. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, I love you. I love you, Nathaniel. With a roar of fury, Nathaniel surged to his feet, summoning the last of his strength. His sword struck true, plunging into Edmund's chest. The uncle gasped, eyes wide with shock, before collapsing lifeless to the floor. Nathaniel swayed, blood staining his hands. Eleanor caught him again, cradling him as the storm raged beyond the doors. Stay with me, she begged. You cannot leave me now. But Nathaniel, though pale and shaking, managed a faint, wry smile. I have no intention of leaving you, wife. The battle ended with Edmund's death. His men fled into the storm, leaving Blackwood Manor soaked in blood and silence. Grace knelt beside Eleanor, her eyes red from weeping. We must take him to safety, she whispered. We must keep him alive. They did. And in the weeks that followed, Nathaniel recovered, though he would carry the scar for the rest of his life. But the victory was not without its cost. Grace could not stay. One morning, she stood before Eleanor in the courtyard, her bag in her hands, her eyes filled with sorrow. I cannot forgive this, she said softly. You chose him. And though I love you, I cannot stay in the house that destroyed us. Eleanor's throat tightened. Grace, please. But Grace shook her head, tears streaming down her face. You belong to him now. And I must find a life of my own. The sisters embraced one last time, their tears mingling in the cold morning air. Then Grace turned and walked away, her figure fading into the horizon. Eleanor stood alone, watching her sister vanish, her heart torn between joy and grief. She had found love where she least expected it, but in doing so, she had lost the sister she once swore to protect. Later, as she sat beside Nathaniel in the quiet of the manor, his hand warm in hers, Eleanor whispered the vow she had never spoken aloud. Whatever comes, I will not leave your side. I will bear the cost. I am yours, Nathaniel Blackwood. And though her heart still ached for her lost sister, it beat fiercely for the man who had nearly died to keep her safe. Love and loss. A bond broken, another forged in fire. The storm had passed, but its echoes would haunt them forever. So, what would you do? Protect your family, or follow your heart? If this story gripped you as much as it did me, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, because there are even more twisted love stories and dark secrets waiting just for you. And let me know in the comments, would you have chosen Nathaniel or walked away?